comprehensive study and rank all of them. And then
Now,
I think you've got to factor in how much they're traveled.
Okay, can I interject one thing, ask you a question while I'm looking at this?
Sure.
And not to sidetrack you, but in your basis for 1 being bad, 10 being good, what basically did you consider bad versus good? Can I ask that?
All I can tell you is like Kushmir's Road was my lowest score of 4, and just travel that, and you can, I'm always a half glass full versus rather than half glass empty. So I could have ranked everything lower, but the key you got to get out of this is the ranking between the roads. You know, the only road I gave a 10 was the one that's over there by Wilson County on County Road 352 by Ollie Goots, his residence, because it's in beautiful shape, but it's not a long road. So it's hard to answer your question other than you can see most of them are probably average 6 to 7, but the roads that have a 4 or 5, those are in really bad shape. You know, I could have gave those a 1, and then my highest score may have been a 6 or 7. So
he was just talking about Kushmir's Road. Was this one of those that was recently done in the last couple of years?
On what I call Kushmir's West, that's between 1518 and Abbott Road. Kushmir's East, we just got finished repairing the bridge closest to 1518. And I want to say this, you know, that those bridges, those low water crossing bridges we did, Mary Jo, 10 years ago, those are such in great shape. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Everyone you go on.
We spent a lot of money, but they did hold up a lot better than what we anticipated.
But without going into great deal of detail because of what happened with the past vendor, you know, you can look at this and come to your own conclusion.
Well, I didn't drive all the roads, but the one I did drive this, the one that I didn't agree with your rating of 8 was Atkins Elmendorf. Of the ones I drove, I found it to be pretty narrow and rough. It's not a very long road to begin with, but it is pretty narrow.
I didn't really put narrowness. I mean, to me, Myrtle East is probably the most narrow, not only because it hasn't been shredded and sprayed, but I was more concentrating on potholes.
Right, well, I found this one to be a little rougher than the others that I drove.
I think if you travel all of them, you're going to see that's one, because I thought that was one of the better ones.
Okay.
I mean, after traveling on.
I mean, after seeing this and after hearing your opinion and Susan's opinion, I'm just wondering if because there's so many of us and because everybody's going to have a different opinion on every road. Because I know when I talked to Councilman Ravelo on the phone the other day, he said when they had ridden them, they didn't find very many in terribly bad shape. But there were, but overall they're not. Because I mean, I'm sure if we asked people who drive other roads in other cities, we'd find out that we're probably not in that bad a shape. But I guess my point is, if we're going to use, if we could use a point system, should we put criteria into that point system that says it's mostly potholes, it's no shoulders, it's too narrow, it's too bumpy, it's, you know, because we have so many. We've got 30-something miles of roads that we're looking at. So we got to come to some sort of a consensus to decide which ones, and I agree, they're not in bad shape, but we need to decide how we're going to do this. And I know you and I talked about a rotation, and you know, we're at the mercy of a contractor. So a contractor's not going to come out here and necessarily do one road here and one road over here, because they're going to get us for the signage moving, the moving of the machines, moving of the signs, and all that kind of stuff. So we either need to pick a quadrant that's in the worst shape, or the 5 top roads that are in the worst shape, and then just bite the bullet
basically
on.
what I was doing with putting together this document that David and I have been working on. It'll show all roads, and I was talking with Barbara about our maps and what similar to this map, where we can show our roads and what section of the road got what work and when, and then we would have an inventory. So when you would look at it, you would know what roads need to work and which ones have got work. And I agree with Councilman Padalecki on his scoring. I think if we can come up with something like that, it would be good. And I think what Lupon, Miller, and Laverne Road are probably we saw.
Yeah, because we know Graytown is a cut through.
Cut through, yes.
We know Lavernia is a cut through, and we know that, is it Pittman is, but then also St. Hedwig Road from the Lavernia side to 1346. So we know of those four that are our most heavily traveled. But we, and I can tell you from when I went back and looked at, as I was working on the budget information, I went back and tried to follow a little bit about what Texas Road Repair does as far as when they fill potholes. And you can see a repeat on certain roads over and over and over again. And so, whatever
It could be that section of the road might need some serious attention.
Right, yeah, because they're, and
hole.
they give me box numbers on some, but they don't give me box numbers on others. So, and of course, because we've got Lupon, North Lupon, East Lupon, if they accidentally leave off the end of the E, I have no way of knowing unless I'm actually physically standing there looking at a box number and saying, oh, this must be where they put it.
Well, David and I are going to be working on that document. Hopefully we'll be able to work at our next meeting.
Okay.
But while I'm still on the roads, I know that we have been trying to get an interlocal agreement with Bear County. I ran into our county commissioner, and I asked if we could get together and I could meet with him on that. But I wouldn't do that without the council's permission. So at this point, I'm asking may I have permission to do that.
That's fine.
Somebody object? I would try to pursue it.
I'm going to repeat, this was a starting point, and I figured it would be valuable, so we can grow off of that, but I still want to emphasize the fact, it's next time we meet, it'll be September. And we've got to make a decision.
And we've got to make a decision, yes.
We're at the end of our budget, it's going to start getting cooler in September. We've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, if council wants to, I think the first thing that we're going to have to do, and I'm going to say this openly, the first thing we're going to have to do is decide if we're going to go with an engineer. We need to get an engineer out here to look at the roads immediately on the ones that we decide. And say we throw them all in a hat and we pick 5, I don't really care how we do it, but we need to come up with something and we need to get an engineer out here.
Why don't we go with the roads we've been talking about for several months now? I keep hearing Miller and Lupon and, all of those specific roads that we know are problems, and I think since, like he said, and that's what I was going to mention, the budget year is changing. So let's just go with those, and then we'll start over with a new plan and new priorities come next
Okay,
year.
but what I'm saying is, pick the roads and then let an engineer come in and decide what we're going to
David
do.
probably knows what they are already, the worst ones.
Well, some of the list I made is kind of consistent too, like you were saying, Lupon and Miller Road and stuff like that.
The major emphasis on criteria I used was chug holes and cracks. If you go down Merkle, there's a ton of cracks, and you will realize as you get halfway down Merkle, that pavement's real thin. That's a road we're fixing to lose. It would be much easier now just to top it. I'm just giving you examples, to top it and get it covered before we lose it completely.
Okay,
And yes, it's not a heavily traveled road, but there are a lot of houses.
No,
And so again, that's an example of lots of cracks. It's not up and down bumpy, but it's going to have a lot of chug holes.
It's on this report.
I know, but okay.
It's the one I get from Bear County, I was trying to say.
Okay,
Roads.
so let's take it for instance. We also know we haven't done anything to Gable Road East either in a long time, nor Gable Road North, and there's East Lupon. What would happen if we would just go ahead and decide to work on that quadrant, North Lupon straight to Merkle Road, and hit all of those roads at one time?
Hit Miller Road.
East is in decent shape. It's just getting narrow because we let the grass grow over it. So, it'd be interesting to see what the engineer would say, but I think, I think Gable, I know a few years ago, it was $50,000 a mile to completely pave a road. I think there's, again, let the engineer figure it out, but I think we have to fill in all existing channel, and I think it's important that we shave off the edges and get the grass off of it. We used to do that, we don't do that as much anymore. I think that's important,
Yeah.
because we're just losing, the biggest thing in my opinion, we're losing the road on the edges.
Right. So why don't we think about, I mean, I'm throwing this out to council, and we can vote on this tonight if everybody comes to an agreement. We think about, and Walter brought up Miller Road. Miller,
Let's get Virgil.
okay, all right. Myrtle, Gable, East Gable, North Gable, East Lupon, and a little bit of New Berlin Road. Now, do we have to take care of that part?
No.
Okay.
We stopped
So-
at Martinez.
Okay, so Myrtle, East Gable, North Gable, East Lupon. And we start with those, and we get an engineer out here to tell us what we need to do, like
Say that
ASAP.
again.
Myrtle,
Okay, hang on.
and I'm not looking at yours, I'm looking at the map. Myrtle, East Gable, North Gable, East Lupon.
But North Gable, part of it was done.
Yeah, that's
That's
another
one
issue.
section.
That was just done, so, again, because
Okay.
of what happened.
Well, I mean,
okay.
okay,
But,
we
yes,
learned from that mistake, but I think we need to have an engineer look at it again and just retop it if that's what's necessary.
So what
If
part of it?
you can have it, why don't we take Councilman Padalecki's score sheet here, and it's scored 5 or below, and look at that.
Well, like the mayor said, though, Councilman Arroyo, we're at the mercy of the construction company, and they're
Yeah,
not
the quality, yeah.
gonna go in spots, so.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of what you're saying, but I've got issues with North Gable, because I unfortunately
Well-
can't say anything because past
Yeah.
possible litigation, but I'm not in favor. I will tell you right now, letting another company cover up what another company.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying at least get the engineer in here to look at it and tell us what it needs. Whether it be a totally different engineer than we've used before or whatever, but get that series of roads looked at by an engineer, and then we either take it from there with North Gable, and do something else with it, but at least we have an engineer telling us what we need on those roads. And then if we can, if we get some sort of pricing in there and it's good pricing, then we can add either North Lupon or KJAC or any of those that are close in that area.
Isn't there a considerable drainage issue there on East Gable, right, as it makes that turn?
Yes.
I mean, it's been brought up in the past by former council.
I thought at one time it was on that list when there was supposed to be Texas.
It was when we were gonna get, when Texas,
Oh,
when
okay,
TxDOT was gonna
You know
fix the
where
bridge.
Texas is?
Okay, yeah, because my east gable it comes off a regular gable, and that's the dead end
Oh,
behind.
no, this is
Myrtle's
right
and-
after Lupon, where
Okay,
the
yes,
split is.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, there is an issue there.
I think that
But, okay,
area needs
so-
to be looked at.
So let's have the engineer, okay, if council is ready to do this, let me put this out there, and then one of y'all make the motion if this is an agreement. We're talking about engineering, Myrtle, East Gable, North Gable, East Lupon.
Can you define East Lupon?
Yeah, what part of East Lupon?
Because I call southeast over there by your house, when you hit the T, and then you go left on Gable and right on Lupon, I call that southeast.
Oh, you
But
do?
what are y'all calling
I
from
don't know
the
what-
church, from the churches to?
No,
To the
I was just talking the part from North Graytown back towards the county line.
Because I want to remind the council that about 4 to 5 years ago.
4 to 5 years
spent
ago, we
a ton of
did that.
money on that stretch because of citizens' concerns about drainage and all that, so we can
So do
look
you
at
want,
it, but
I mean, just to look at it or not look at it at all?
I
And
think-
then use KJAC and Osway?
I think if you go Gable, left of the T intersection,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe Lupon to the right, since that's all in the same quadrant, and just see what the engineer says.
Okay,
I think you're gonna be surprised how expensive that would be to retop that. So,
okay, so
So you don't want to put Myrtle on there?
yes.
Myrtle,
Myrtle,
East
East Gable
Gable,
right there.
North Gable, and East Lupon to the right.
Yes.
Okay, you got
And
that?
that's all in the one
Councilman
area?
Ratcliffe?
Want it
Okay.
all together.
All right, so now, we have the roads out there, now I need somebody to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay,
But I want to make sure it includes consideration for the water, the drainage there at East Gable.
okay. Okay, we have a motion out there to have an engineer work up a study on Myrtle, East Gable, North Gable, East Lupon to the right
Of the team.
of the T intersection. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, any comments, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Okay, now, find us an engineer.
We need to get a completely new.
Perfectly fine with me. I just told him find one. I don't care who he uses, just find us one.
Do we need to do some potholes in August? Would that help?
Texas Road Repair comes through once a month anyway. They're kind of
I didn't
on.
run across any serious ones, I guess because it hadn't rained in a while, but I.
They were just here, how long, Barbara?